set that up. Oh, I think it'll work.
Your Honor, just one more thing that maybe we can handle before the hearing. Well, in the time that you had appointed for procedural matters. There are two motions, I think, that haven't been kind of formally ruled on. One related to Larson rebuttal and one related to Stasek rebuttal.
Yeah, I didn't see any responses to those.
Right.
Were there any? So
No,
I thought, well, my understanding was that they were unopposed at this point, but we can,
that's my understanding too.
yeah, we can confirm that when people here. So I
Okay.
never started the live stream yet before setting up the page. So let me see if that's working or not. I just got distracted with this stuff. That's the wrong title. We can deal with that later. Well, we have some people here. Are there any issues we need to address? We do have some motions that WEPCO had mentioned. At this point, I believe they're uncontested, but we'll confirm that when we have everyone together. Any other issues we need to discuss before we take our first witness that people need to raise? And I'll go through the normal procedural stuff, but anything unique that we haven't dealt with yet. All right, well, why don't we just go through the offered evidence list at first, at least, and we have all the parties here that are represented with testimony filed. And I do appreciate everyone joining us a little bit early so we could get a jump on this. Like I mentioned, we'll have a short, rather short day today, and we need to get everything settled today.
So, Your Honor,
yeah, go ahead.
so while we're on this page,
Yeah.
I believe there's rebuttal for Mr. Anderson, and I have the PSC ref number. That's helpful.
Okay, yeah, I'll just type it in. Go ahead.
535469. I believe it's just public. So that's the only one.
Okay, thanks. And other pages. There wasn't a whole lot of refiling, just the simple standard stuff I can remember. I wanted to note, if we do want to try to start at exhibit 1 and then just number exhibits consecutively down for each witness. So for some reason, I think in the other cases as well, we had a few exhibits missed for Stasek. So we just a note, I'm just going to leave them crossed like this on the received list so that people realize they're not missing. They're just not available.
Thank you, Aaron. That makes sense to us.
And
apologies for missing those.
No, thanks for saying that. Yeah. So this, so I had this Stasek X for the tariff disclaimer, tariff claiming statement, I guess if you want to call it that. Let's just mark that now. We had 22 now.
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you.
It's going to be a 23, which will be the jester. And that was filed in 317, the jester article.
That's right.
Do you know if there's a way for me to make that document that's on the screen smaller?
Yeah, on your screen. Yeah, I think if you kind of put your mouse on the edge of it, you can drag it around. Yeah.
Yeah, I've done that. It's not making it any smaller, and I can only see 4 people.
Okay, let me so you
that's better.
Okay. Maybe some other tricks there that
yeah, there's a view. You can do standard, side-by-side speaker, side-by-side gallery.
It still brings that up as like a huge person. You know, it takes up like 9 blocks. Let me try the multi-speaker. No, that's less people.
Your Honor,
I usually do gallery.
Before we get too far on the document itself, I think if you scroll up it so that we see all of rebuttal for Stasek, it relates to the motion.
Okay.
That you have kind of both the revised and the original in there.
Yeah, that's true. I haven't adjusted that yet, right?
Okay. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, sorry about that. Let's see. So yeah, I don't think I can change your view very well from here, but so Stasek, the rebuttal. So we're gonna accept. So let's do that we'll do that quickly on the record. I think, well, I don't think it's really necessary. So just for the people who joined us, I think the WEPCO did file a motion to accept. We'll do that. Yeah, let's do this on the record because there's a pretty big change. So yeah, just wait a sec. Remind me. We'll do it on the record.
Okay.
So we're going through the offered evidence list. Do we have any other questions from the applicant on the list?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. How about Cub? Any questions?
I don't believe so. Just looking through it one more time.
Okay. And Sierra Club?
No questions, but I will note that I would like to offer one additional document as an exhibit, and I can offer that through witness Larson, if that's okay.
Miss Larson. Okay. Well, was that served to parties yesterday?
It was not, but it was a response to Sierra Club's 5th discovery request.
So it's in okay. So it's in the docket, already filed in the docket. All right. Well,
Correct.
You can try.
Okay.
I think that might not be a big problem, but I can't make
Fair
that
enough.
decision right now.
Thank you.
And if you could give us the PSC reference number for that.
Sure. Do you want it now?
Yeah.
It is PSC reference number 537618. It's attachment two to response data request 5.03.
Okay, so 537-618.
Correct.
All right, so we can get to that.
Thank you.
How about staff? Any questions with the offered evidence list?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. All right, well, that helps. Thanks for moving that along. Looks like we have less people joining us now. We have everyone here. Well, let's find that out. So, all right, let's get on the record. We'll just start our preliminary reductions here. It's clear. All right, well, welcome. This is docket 6630 CG 140, the application of Wisconsin Electric Power Company for what we're calling the new liquefied natural gas facility. I guess we're calling it the OC LNG. It's the short name. I'm Michael Newmark, Administrative Law Judge for the PSC. We're connected by Zoom with parties on Zoom, and we've made the YouTube channel live stream available for others to observe. We're here to take evidence of the parties. We've already taken the public session comments from the public, and we will still be accepting public comments up until April 7th. So details on how to do that are on the notice. Let's just switch to quickly to appearances, and we'll just start with Citizens Utility Board.
Good morning, Your Honor. Corey Singletary on behalf of the Citizens Utility Board, and joining me also is Dr. Steve Keim.
All right, great. And Clean Wisconsin.
Good morning, Your Honor. Brett Cordy on behalf of Clean Wisconsin.
PSC.
Sophia Rogers.
Sierra Club.
Good morning. This is Priyam Desai on behalf of Sierra Club.
Walnut Way.
Morning, Krista Westerberg on behalf of Walnut Way.
WEPCO.
Good morning, Your Honor. Attorney Patrick Parker Brown on behalf of Wisconsin Electric Power Company. Also with me are attorneys Wilson, Fortune, Rosso, Gutner, and Keith Phillips.
And
Mr. Goldschmidt will join us later today too.
okay, great. Thanks. WEG.
Yes, good morning. Steve Heinzen for the Wisconsin Industrial Energy Group.
Okay, great. That's all our parties, right? We're not missing anybody. Oh, somehow different variety today. Okay. So we've gone through the offered evidence list, and this has been a lot of filings here. Things have been shifting around a bit, but I did want to, while we're on the record, just note in terms of the Stasek rebuttal filing, there was a motion to revise that testimony, and there were no responses to that motion that I saw. So because that time for objecting to that's passed, I'm assuming there are no objections, and we're going to receive that version of the testimony. Adjustment here. There was one other motion though, wasn't there?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay.
I think it relates to rebuttal WEPCO Larson. We inadvertently failed to file that testimony, so I didn't
right.
to accept it.
Yeah, and there was no objection to that. That's okay.
Correct, Your Honor.
Okay, so I think we can get started. I did want to just look at my list to make sure we're not missing things we need. Oh, yes. First of all, before we get started, for real, let's go off the record. Just we can just decide who we can excuse if there's no cross. And there are only a few witnesses that were flagged for questions. So we can just confirm that now. Looked like oh, where are they? Just is it Thapa? Is the only witness for the applicant?
That's what we saw, Your Honor.
If we can, we'd also like to ask witness Larson one question.
Larson, okay. And you had something for Stasek as well, wasn't that? Oh, who is going to who were you going to offer that data request with? Was it
It was with witness Larson.
Larson? Okay, something else. Okay. And okay, anyone else for the applicant witnesses? No? Okay. And for Cub, looked like Burgess, applicant had questions for Burgess. Anyone else for Cub? Oh, and for Singletary. So is
Yes, Your
Kime,
Honor.
any questions for Kime?
No, Your Honor.
No one? Okay. And Sierra Club, we have questions. I think with staff, there was Munson and Tomaszewski. Any other questions for commission staff? All right, not hearing anything. So let's get on the record, and I can excuse the following witnesses, there being no cross-examination of them. And I can accept their testimony that's been filed in the case and appears on the offered evidence list, pending the corrections that may be necessary as indicated in the offered evidence list, and an affidavit verifying the testimony. And this, of course, is optional. Person may appear if the party wishes to call them, but I'm just going to do this quickly now. So we have Anderson, Arndt, Gerlikowski, Haggerty, Correa, Lambert, Stasek, Zamuto. Oh, not missing. That's all your witnesses, right? I'm getting confused with the other case. Okay, so
Yes.
they're all excused.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Kime, Adams,
Waliardo.
Warliardo, thanks. My tongue is tired today. Lindquist, Rodemacher, Rowe, they're all excused as well. Okay, so we did have a discussion that we should all probably do this off the record. Just want to get people informed about the following. Well, let's do it on the record. Okay, sorry. Let's do this. Just make sure we have this documented. I know, trying to do this quickly. That's the problem, right? So we did have an agreement before you guys, many of you joined us. It appeared that WEPCO has filed in the Stasek Sursa rebuttal a few articles, newspaper articles that were also filed in the 317 case. And Walnut Way requested that there also be the companion to that agreement to file those cases. Those articles in 317 also included an article from witness Jester in the 317 case. So that's going to be filed as Stasek 23. So you'll see that coming in the refiling period. Also, we're going to see an adjustment to Stasek 22 to reflect the email that I'd sent out last night. So that's just gonna, it's going to, I can actually give you the PSC reference number. It's gonna look like the first page of the following document filed in the 316 case. And that PSC number is 540242. So it'll have the first page, which just describes the application document that was filed in 6630 TE 113. It'll be in the form of an affidavit from Stasek, but filed as an exhibit. So it'll still be exhibit 22. I guess you want to make that 22R in this case, in the 140 case. So that covers that. I don't think there's anything else we.
Just for the record, for applicant, I think you recited everything accurately.
All right, thanks for that.
Thank you.
Confirmation. Let's see. All right, so I think that's all the pending motions. Is there anything else we need to address in terms of motions that are still authorized within the time frame we have? So it's anything that hasn't had a deadline pass. For example, like you can't really, you can't really object to rebuttal now because the rebuttal's already filed. surrebuttal and surrebuttal. However, there's been no subsequent deadline. So any issues with the surrebuttal or surrebuttal filings? Nothing? Okay. All right. So then fingers working there, Debbie, you were on the record, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so let's say, so that I can accept for the record, all the documents that are reflected in the offered evidence list, including, which is not on the list right now, the rebuttal from applicants and that related testimony with the adjustments we just discussed. And I think that's, oh, that we'll just need, refilings and verification for that to go forward. So I think we're good. Let's get our first witness on the stand.
So, Your Honor, I don't know that we necessarily have a preference between Mr. Larson and Mr. Thapa.
Take them
But we would
alphabetical.
call, sure. So Mr. Larson, I think, would be first alphabetically.
All right. Just need to see him there. Oh, there we go. So just off the record, are you okay with that, Debbie? Can we just leave it as WEPCO 2 for the witness?
Yeah, I just heard his name. Will
Okay.
you be keeping that document on the page? The list?
Yeah, I usually do.
Okay. I never pay attention to it. I slide it over so I have a good view, but
I don't know
that's
what's
fine.
happening there. Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, okay, let's proceed. So I'm going to swear you in. Raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm, tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Larson, would you state your name for the record, please?
Yes, Russell Larson.
Mr. Larson, did you prepare and cause to be filed direct, rebuttal, surrebuttal, and surrebuttal testimony?
Yes.
And if I asked you the questions in the testimony today, would your answers be the same?
Yes.
And you also filed an errata to your rebuttal testimony, which will reflect in revised testimony. Do you understand that?
Yes.
And then, Mr. Larson, did you also prepare and cause to be filed one exhibit, confidential and public versions?
Yes.
And is that exhibit true and correct to the best of your knowledge?
Yes.
Mr. Larson is available for cross.
Okay, so I think Sierra Club had some questions. Go ahead.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Larson. My name's Priyam Desai. I'm an attorney with Sierra Club, and I have a few questions for you. Your Honor, I'd like to offer one additional document as an exhibit for the record. It is PSC reference 537618. If we could bring that up, it's attachment 2 to witness Larson's response 5.03.
Okay, and that's in this docket, right? The response.
It's in this docket, correct?
Okay, so just that, so we can mark that Larson 2. Is there only a public version to that response?
There is only a public version to that response.
And just one trick to this would be if it's going to be coming in as an exhibit, we'll need to convert it to PDF. And the response page, the text page that this came with, that this is attached to, should be the first page of that exhibit.
Okay.
Okay. So, well, this is a data request. We can pursue the questions, or I can just ask if there are any objections to receive this. Why don't we just do it that way and see? Any objections to receiving the Larson 2, proposed Larson 2?
Yeah, Your Honor, with the clarification that the data request response, the written portion of it would be the first part of the exhibit. No objection.
All right. Yep, that's how I like to have it in there. So great. So we'll put that in as Larson 2. So go ahead with your questions.
Thank you so much. Mr. Larson, do you recognize this document?
Yes.
And could you identify what it is?
Do you have the data response that you can share, the text? I believe the question though was relating to what percentage of spot purchases if you go to the
Oh,
totals.
Let me clarify.
Okay.
Is this the attachment that you included in your response to Sierra Club's 5th data request? Question 3.
Yes.
Okay. I have a very simple question. Could you please provide us the units for column G for spot purchases?
Yeah, that would be decatherms or million BTUs.
Okay. No further questions for me.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else for cross? No, redirect?
No, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right, great, thanks. Thank you very much. You're excused. We can take the next witness.
Thanks, Russell. So our next witness will be Mr. Thapa, who's joining me in a second.
Okay. Hi there, I'm going to swear you in. Raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right, go ahead.
Mr. Thapa, would you state your name for the record?
Anul Thapa.
And Mr. Thapa, did you prepare and cause to be filed direct, rebuttal, and rebuttal testimony?
Yes.
And if I asked you the questions in that testimony today, would your answers be the same?
Yes.
And subject to some corrections that we discussed off the record earlier, did you also prepare and cause to be filed 18 exhibits?
Yes.
And subject to the corrections we discussed before, are those exhibits true and correct to the best of your knowledge?
Yes.
Mr. Thapa is available for cross.
All right, again, Sierra Club, go ahead.
Thank you. Hello, Mr. Thapa. My name is Priyam Desai. I'm with Sierra Club, and I have just one question for you.
Okay.
If we could please look at the second portion of Figure 2 in your rebuttal testimony on page 13.
Yes, I'm there.
Okay. As you stated in your direct testimony, the Bluff Creek LNG storage facility began operating in 2023. So isn't it true that because it was not yet operational during the February 2021 time period of Winter Storm Uri, that the spot prices and associated gas cost savings that you referenced in this Figure 2 cannot reflect the incremental hedging value of Bluff Creek? Is that correct?
Do you mind breaking down the question, please? So you're saying.
Sure. So in your direct testimony, you stated that the Bluff Creek LNG storage facility began operating in 2023, right?
That's my understanding. Yes.
Okay. So since Winter Storm Uri happened in 2021, it's fair to assume that the calculations for gas savings that you did, gas cost savings that you did in Figure 2 in your rebuttal testimony in this table do not reflect the incremental hedging value of Bluff Creek.
Objection form.
Okay. If the witness understands that question, I think it's fair.
Yeah, it would be better if you rephrase the question, please,
Okay.
again.
What's hanging you up there?
Specifically about the Bluff Creek LNG facility not being available there. If I may, maybe I can clarify.
Yeah. Let's hear what you understand.
So this calculation here is looking at historically what would have happened if Oak Creek LNG facility was operating during Winter Storm Uri. And that's the only question I was asking here. During that time period, Bluff Creek LNG was not operating. That's true. But I was only looking at, as you can see there, at the actual gas purchases. What were the actual gas purchases that WEGO made at that time? To the extent that Bluff Creek LNG became operational later, and Oak Creek LNG is going to become operational, for example, in 2027, the question there is going to be completely different. The peak day demand is going to be different. And at that time, Oak Creek LNG will be needed along with Bluff Creek LNG. And that's in my testimony, in my direct testimony, if you take a look at that. Does that answer your question? I don't know if I answered it adequately.
Partially. So this analysis that you did in this portion of your rebuttal testimony that is represented in Figure 2 does not contemplate the Bluff Creek LNG storage facility. Is that right?
Right, because this was historically. But if you want to then translate that to what would happen once OCLNG is actually built, that's a different, you do have to consider both.
Okay, thank you. No further questions.
Great. All right.
All right.
Any
Thank
other
you.
cross? Other cross from other parties from that, based on that? No. All right. Any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. Thanks. Thank you. You're excused.
All right. Thank you.
So we can move on to, and so that's all of WEPCO's witnesses that they want to call.
Yes, Your Honor. We'll submit by affidavit. For the
All right. Move on to Citizens Utility Board. Witness Burgess, there's some cross for you. So not seeing you. Oh, there you go. All right. I'll
Yes.
swear you in. Raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm, tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
All right. Welcome back.
Thank you.
And you might just speak up a little bit. I think if it's, I don't know if it's your microphone or just if
All right, call the mic closer. Is that better?
That's much better. Yeah, thanks.
Okay.
All right. So, so Corey Singletary, will you be taking the lead here on this?
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you for bringing the witness to the stand for me.
All right. Go ahead.
Good morning, Mr. Burgess. Could you please state and spell your name for the record?
Yes, my name is Edward Burgess, EDWARD BURGESS.
And did you prepare and cause to be filed direct, rebuttal, and surrebuttal testimony in this proceeding?
Yes.
And did you prepare and cause to be filed an original number of 18 exhibits?
Yes.
Okay. If asked the same questions set forth in your testimony today under oath, would your answers be the same?
Yes.
And is the information in your exhibit testimony and exhibits true and correct to the best of your knowledge?
Yes.
The witness is available for cross-examination.
Okay. The applicant has questions.
Morning, Mr. Burgess. My name is Joe Wilson. I'm one of the lawyers representing the applicant in this case. How are you?
Good, thanks. Good morning.
Mr. Burgess, you didn't do any of your own Plexus modeling in this case, did you?
No, I didn't.
Do you or your firm own a license for Plexus?
For Plexos, we currently don't own a license, although we do have licenses for other similar capacity expansion models and production cost modeling software that functions largely similar to Plexos.
Have you ever yourself done modeling in Plexus?
In Plexos, I've been involved in projects that have run Plexos modeling. I was not the modeler in that project, but I provided input to the modeling assumptions and inputs.
You've never been an employee of a public utility, have you?
I have not.
Have you ever done resource planning on behalf of a utility?
I've worked with utilities as a contractor on projects related to resource planning, and I've participated in a number of formal resource planning proceedings that have examined and done modeling on utility resource plans using utility data. So that's my experience. Yeah.
You're not a commodities trader, are you?
I'm not.
You don't hold yourself out as an expert in commodities trading, do you?
No, although I deal with commodity pricing and forecasting on a regular basis, but that's not my main focus.
I want to focus a little bit on the recommendations you've made in this case. You argue that the OC LNG project should not be considered by the commission until after it decides whether to approve the Paris Rice and OCCT projects, correct?
That's correct.
As the dockets for the OC LNG, Paris Rice, and OCCT projects are currently sequenced, that is what will happen, right?
Yeah, to the best of my knowledge, that seems likely.
You also argue that the OC LNG facility should not be authorized if the commission rejects the OCCT and Paris Rice facilities or significantly scales them back, correct?
Correct.
If the commission does approve the OCCT and Paris Rice facilities as proposed, is it your position that the commission should also approve the OC LNG facility?
I think that it would make a lot more sense to approve it. I do have some questions about whether the proposed magnitude of the project is appropriate, but yes.
Do you have those questions even if the OCCT and Paris Rice facilities are approved as proposed?
Sorry, could you repeat the question?
Sure.
Read it back.
Question, do you have those questions even if the OCCT and Paris Rice facilities are approved as proposed?
Yeah, I think I think I have some question about, just the overall need in the context of the larger system. Part of it depends on those it mainly depends on those projects, but other activities going on the system as well as the timing. And so I think the magnitude and the timing of the project may require some further analysis, even if those are approved.
Have you expressed those specific doubts about the OC LNG facility need and timing if the OCCT and Paris Rice facilities are approved as proposed in your testimony so far?
No, I haven't done that analysis.
You argue that the commission should consider an alternative to the OC LNG project that is 95 to 98% smaller than the proposed facility, right?
Yes, based on my analysis, if there were if those generation projects were not constructed or significantly scaled back, then the findings of my analysis are that you wouldn't need 95 to 98% of the LNG storage capacity that's being proposed to be built here.
You would agree, though, that that alternative will not work if the OCCT and Paris Rice facilities are approved as proposed, right?
Right. Well, as I alluded to before, I haven't conducted what the percentage would be in that case. So that's right. Yeah, that's correct. Although, I don't know if it would be a 0% reduction or 50% or what it might be.
You just haven't done the analysis to figure out the answer to that question, correct?
Correct.
Is it fair to say that your position on the OC LNG is largely derivative of your position on the OCCT and Paris Rice facilities?
Well, I think the OC LNG project is largely driven by those other two generation facilities. So because of that dependency, then yes, my recommendations here are in many ways tied to whether or not those facilities are needed as proposed, And so there is a clear linkage between these.
Is it a fair summary of your testimony in this case that your criticisms of the economic modeling are the same as your criticisms of the economic modeling performed in the OCCT and Paris-Rice dockets?
Largely the same, and I think, perhaps, I have a more sharpened or nuanced, critique here as time has gone on, and I've had, more ability to consider the analysis that's been done.
And I believe you stated this, but I just want to make sure I understand your testimony. You doubt the need for the OCC LNG facility, both in terms of how much firm gas capacity will be needed and when it will be needed, right?
Right.
If we assume that significant additional firm gas capacity will be needed in the 2027 timeframe, would you agree that the only two feasible ways of getting that capacity would be to either construct an LNG storage facility or procure expanded interstate pipeline capacity?
I believe those would be the, two primary options that are under consideration here. Again, though, I think, there could be also, smaller facilities that could be potentially explored in terms of gas storage that, may not be LNG facilities per se, or there could be, other demand side solutions as well.
So, have you analyzed the cost or feasibility of other storage solutions that you've just mentioned?
No.
The company considered expansion of interstate pipeline capacity as an alternative to the OCLNG facility, correct?
Yes.
Other than your doubts about the underlying need for expanded firm gas capacity, you don't have any dispute with the company's economic analysis of the alternative of expanding interstate pipeline capacity, do you?
No, and and frankly, I didn't explore it in thorough detail, but I don't have any reasons at the moment to question that analysis.
And specifically, you don't have any basis to contest the company's analysis of the relative cost of an LNG facility versus expansion of interstate pipeline capacity, do you?
No, although, those wouldn't, as we just discussed, I mean, there may be other options for comparison too, including smaller sized LNG facilities or smaller sized storage facilities that could be considered.
I understand that, but you haven't analyzed the relative cost of such smaller facilities to the OCLNG facility or expansion of interstate pipeline capacity, have you?
No, but I think it stands to reason that a smaller facility would come with a smaller price tag. So that's sort of just a basic, I think, consideration on that front.
You argue in your direct testimony that the commission should not approve the OCLNG facility until service agreements are in place for new electric load, demonstrating the need for the Paris-Rice and OCCT facilities, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
And are you aware that Wisconsin Electric just filed the forms of the service agreements in question for commission approval on March 31st, 2025?
Yeah, I did see that those were filed.
It will take the commission some time to consider and approve or disapprove those service agreements and the accompanying tariffs, right?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I don't think anybody's had time to evaluate those yet, and I think that's partly, problem of the sequencing here is as far as, those tariffs, ideally would have been earlier in the process here, prior to the proposals being put forward for the generation facilities and the LNG facility.
Wisconsin Electric has requested approval of the tariffs and service agreements by December 31, 2025. Did you see that in the filing?
I haven't reviewed the filing in detail, but that does sound familiar. And I don't know if I'm not sure if we're able to really speak to the contents of that proposal here in this proceeding based on my understanding of the ALG's.
But I agree, and I'm not looking.
Yeah.
I'm not looking to get into the substance of the tariff and service agreements.
So just to lay that out a little further, I don't think that would be record evidence, the date that they're requesting, because we're simply noting that the application's filed. That's going to be the substance that's coming into the record. So proceed with that understanding.
Yep, fair enough. Okay. You've taken the position across multiple dockets that the company's load projections are not sufficiently certain to justify the company's proposed projects, including this one, right?
That's correct.
Did you have an opportunity to review exhibit WEPCO STASIC 17, which is a letter from Microsoft dated March 27?
I think I saw that one. It was a brief letter, if I recall. Maybe, let's see if.
Your Honor, could we just bring that up on the screen, exhibit WEPCO STASIC 17? Take a look.
Do that. We have it here.
Does exhibit WEPCO STASIC 17 look familiar to you, Mr. Burgess?
Yes.
And this letter reiterates Microsoft's September 2024 load forecast, right?
Yes, they mentioned that there, September 2024.
You have no basis to doubt Microsoft's statements in this exhibit about its Mount Pleasant plans or its load projections, do you?
No, I don't have any reason to doubt it. I think what I would just point out, though, is I think, what they mentioned here is that they're, on track for the 3.3 billion commitment, which my understanding is equates to just phase one of their proposed project, which has been estimated around 450 megawatts. And so I think there's still, this, to my mind, doesn't provide a lot of additional certainty around, what happens in future phases. There's a mention of intention to build additional infrastructure, but there's no detail around sort of what that means, or, or how, whether that, and I think the further out you get in time, obviously there's a lot more uncertainty in any of those forecasts.
So I'm going to try not to get into confidential information here. I would ask you to do the same. But beyond talking about being on track for phase one, the letter also talks about standing by the September 2024 load forecast. And that load forecast was different than the 450 megawatt forecast you mentioned, correct?
Correct. It's also different than the forecast that the companies use in their own analysis in these proceedings.
Thank you for answering my question.
Yeah.
Is it your position that the company should never be authorized to build new generation until the commission approves a tariff or service agreement accounting for the capacity of that generation?
Objecting to form, I don't think that's what the witness has testified, offered in his direct also.
Let's read it back.
Question, is it your position that the company should never be authorized to build new generation until the commission approves a tariff or service agreement accounting for the capacity of that generation?
Okay, overall, I think we're just asking the witness to confirm that if it's his testimony or not.
So I think that is an interesting question in terms, and one that I've been thinking more about lately in terms of, it's in some ways a policy question for the commission as we, are entering this era of new load growth. And I do think that there's some merit to considering whether some of the, these tariffs should be sequenced first, prior to some of these large generation projects that are being proposed. I think that would provide a lot more certainty and cost protection to existing customers. And so, I think I do think that there's some merit to that.
So I'll ask again, is it your position that the company should never be authorized to build new generation until the commission approves a tariff or service agreement representing the load or the production of that new generation?
I mean, I guess I would hesitate to say the commission should never do something, but I think that there, as I mentioned, I think there's some merit to making sure that, those tariffs are in place prior to, embarking upon these large investments.
Would you agree as a general matter that the utility has an obligation to serve load as a customer comes online and needs service?
Generally, yes.
So you'd also presumably agree that there's a timing element to all of this, and the utility could find itself in a position of needing to have generation before, or at least to start constructing generation before service agreements and tariffs are approved, right?
Well, I suppose, although partly that's, the company's decision of whether or not to put forward the tariff, what timeline they choose to put those forward on, and I think they have some ability to determine that.
You don't have any personal knowledge of the process of developing the tariffs that have now been proposed, do you?
No, although I imagine they've been under development for some time, and no draft has been shared with Cub or other parties to my knowledge prior to the other day.
Is there more questions on this topic? I think we understand the witness's testimony that it depends on the situation essentially, and whatever he's going to answer after that's probably going to be speculative. So, anything more direct to ask him about?
Yep.
Okay.
In your rebuttal testimony, you note that unlike other modeling runs, the model runs that have been labeled 6.9 and 6.10 resulted in 0 incremental new solar being constructed between 2023 and 2052, correct?
That's right.
As an initial matter, that isn't true, is it? The model actually did select 300 megawatts of solar, and specifically the High Noon project, right?
Right. So I think it's important to distinguish, the resource options the model has to select from. So there's basically, a couple solar app choices. There's the High Noon project, which is specified for, a project that's already basic, under development and expected to be constructed. There's also generic solar that the model can choose from. What I'm referring to is that generic solar, which in basically every model run the company did, some generic solar was selected at some point over the next 30 years, except for model runs 6.9 and 6.10. And the fact that there was no solar selected at any point in time over that 30 years is concerning to me and would be sort of an outlier based on all the modeling runs the company's done and all modeling runs I generally see from utilities across the country that have some amount of generic solar being selected.
And in fact, you called this result, quote, unexpected and counterintuitive at page 11 of your rebuttal, and you suggested that the result may be due to, quote, failure to properly calibrate the model to yield realistic results. That was at page 9 of your rebuttal. Is that correct?
That's right.
Do you stand by those statements?
Yeah, I think, as I mentioned, it would be out of step with basically all the modeling I generally see of utilities across the country to think that there'd be no solar additions over the next 30 years. So it is, unexpected and counterintuitive.
Would you agree that economic modeling and utility construction cases should explore a variety of potential futures, even including some that may be unlikely to occur?
Perhaps, but I think that part of the value of doing those model runs is then to try to understand or explain, what the results mean. And I haven't seen that done in this case.
Well, didn't Mr. Grokowski explain in his rebuttal and rebuttal testimony that the model results in this case were a combination of a limitation of 450 megawatts of new load and the new DLOL capacity accreditation methodology?
Right, but as I also explained that, there were other model runs with that DLOL accreditation update that all did include additional solar.
Yeah, but Mr. Burgess, those model runs also assumed significantly more load, correct? Or excuse me, significantly more demand, correct?
Correct.
Thank you. Have you reviewed Commission staff witness Daniel Grant's rebuttal testimony on this point in Docket 6630 CE 317? And that testimony is an exhibit in this case as STASIC 19.
Yeah, I think I recall that. I think we went over that in that other case.
And you recall that Dr. Grant said, quote, staff reviewed the inputs and did not find any evidence that the Plexus inputs had been altered by the applicant to change the ability of solar resources to be chosen by the model in years 2027 to 2029 compared to other runs.
Yeah, I remember something like that.
Okay. And do you accept Dr. Grant's representation on this point?
I do. I mean, I think it's what I don't know for sure though is if other factors were considered about why this result would have emerged, or if Dr. Grant looked at that. As I mentioned, I think it's just generally a result that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And so whether it's the solar assumptions or something else that's driving that result, there's just something that's amiss here.
So despite Dr. Grant's opinion on this matter, you're not withdrawing your position that there was something wrong with the modeling inputs leading to this result. Is that right?
Well, as I mentioned, I mean, I don't know if wrong is the right word, but something that's not properly calibrated to produce a realistic result, I think is how I couched it.
Mr. Burgess, have you undertaken any analysis to determine what would happen to the costs of the OCLNG project if it is delayed, as you have proposed?
No.
What has been the general trend in power plant construction costs in the last couple of years, to your knowledge?
Power plant construction costs. Can you be more specific about
Sure.
which,
You-
a specific type or of power plant?
Now, have you analyzed the cost trends for construction of liquefied natural gas storage facilities over the last couple of years?
Well, look, an LNG storage facility wouldn't be a power plant per se, but I guess my answer is no. I haven't done a detailed review of those trends.
Have you done any review of those trends, detailed or not?
Not really, except to say that there's been general inflation in construction costs, across the economy.
Thank you. And would you expect increased tariffs to exacerbate the inflationary pressure on construction costs, all else equal?
Do you mean tariffs like what we heard about in the news yesterday?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's just general concern about inflationary effects of those tariffs writ large. Yeah, I mean, it's going to take, I think, some time to really unpack what the implications of those are or understand what they mean for the entire economy.
Do you agree that it's likely that it would cost more to construct the LNG facility in, say, 2029 than in 2027?
I don't see
Potentially.
how we can answer that question.
Well, I mean, we've been talking about the overall trends and impacts of tariffs, et cetera, which you have said are leading to inflationary pressures. So I think it's a natural extension of that line of questioning.
I would object that it's speculative, however.
Where are we at, Your Honor? Is he answering that question or not?
I'm going to I think we should just move on to another question. I don't think we're going to get reliable for that.
So you're sustaining Walnut Ways Council's
sustaining my objection. Yeah. Trying to figure out. Yeah, sustaining my objection to the question.
Got it. Have you attempted to independently calculate how many megawatts of energy efficiency savings the company can count on in any future year?
I've done some analysis on energy efficiency, cost-effective energy efficiency potential that was based upon the same study that the company relied upon, the Focus on Energy Potential Study, to look at, what amount of energy efficiency might be achievable and relied upon in the future for the company.
Okay. And that analysis is as reflected in your testimony. You haven't done anything beyond that, right?
Right.
At page 21 of your SOAR rebuttal testimony, lines 12 to 13, you state that, quote, "My primary recommendation in this case is for the company to pursue BESS at the existing Oak Creek interconnection site," end quote, correct?
Right.
So if there's one thing you want the commission to carefully consider in this case, it's this recommendation to construct BESS at Oak Creek, correct?
Well, I had a number of recommendations, but I think in terms of what makes sense for, incremental capacity that the company might need to construct, my recommendation was to focus on battery energy storage system at Oak Creek site, taking advantage of that existing interconnection, as the company is proposing to do with the CT facilities, but there's based on my analysis, it may be more cost effective to do that, provide that capacity with battery energy storage rather than the CTs.
How much battery energy storage would the company need to build at the Oak Creek interconnection site to displace 1,100 megawatts of natural gas fueled combustion turbines?
I don't know that number off the top of my head, but it could be readily calculated based upon the capacity accreditation value of the battery storage.
Is it safe to say that on a nameplate basis, it would have to be much more than 1,100 megawatts of battery energy storage?
I don't know if it would be much more, but it might be more, yeah.
Is there any scenario where 1,100 megawatts of battery energy storage could replace 1,100 megawatts of CT capacity in terms of meeting customer demand?
Well, I guess that depends on how you're evaluating it. And I think that you'd have to take into account if you're looking at the capacity accreditation value of these resources, then, battery's going to have a certain value of capacity accreditation, as will CTs, and how those match up.
The battery energy accreditation.
I'm sorry. I didn't hear the end of the answer. And how those match up?
How those accreditation values match up. And that's, partly determined by MISO's accreditation studies. So, I think at the moment there may be a need for slightly larger nameplate value of batteries versus the CTs, depending on which year. So it wouldn't be 1-to-1 necessarily from sort of a nameplate value, but you could certainly equate them in terms of their capacity value.
Again, you haven't analyzed how much more BESS nameplate capacity would be needed versus OCCT, right?
I mean, it's a simple calculation. If that's something you're looking for, I could provide that number.
How long would it take to receive?
I did provide some estimate of what I thought the battery capacity need would be under some different scenarios to provide, in combination with other resources to provide that equivalent capacity value.
How long would it take to receive regulatory approval for and then build battery energy storage as the alternative to constructing the OCCT facility?
To receive regulatory approval
And then construct, yep.
and then construct it. I don't know how long it would take to receive the regulatory approval. But generally speaking, you know, battery storage facilities have a very short development timeframe, often shorter than gas-fired CTs or other thermal units would have.
Mr. Burgess, in the OCCT and Paris Rice hearings, my colleague James Goldschmidt asked you a series of questions about your criticisms of the economic modeling in those cases, right? On cross-examination.
Right.
He also asked you questions about your proposed alternatives to the OCCT and Paris Rice projects. Do you recall that?
Yeah.
And you understand that you were under oath when you answered those questions, right?
Right.
And you stand by the answers you gave in those proceedings?
I do.
What is your ultimate position on whether the commission should grant or deny the application in this docket?
Yeah, we should this.
Hang on, this is not already in testimony?
Well, I would say his recommendation and, well, how I read his testimony is that it's sort of contingent, but I'd like to understand if there's any nuance to that.
A succinct declaration from the witness. Let's see what we get. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
and I guess I would just like, it's my understanding the parties have a position. The witness has provided recommendations. So I guess I object to the form of the question to that extent.
Sure, that's fair.
I'm asking for Mr. Burgess's position. He's a hired witness by Cub. He certainly has a position on this. I think that's a fair question.
I think Cub will express its position in briefing, and witnesses have testimony. So that would be my objection.
You can give his expert opinion. I think that's what we're looking for.
Sure. If you want my expert opinion on whether the project should be approved right now, I would say no. You know, if the OCCT and Paris Rice projects are, you know, not approved and not constructed, then the project almost certainly wouldn't be needed. And even if only, you know, 2 OCCT units are built, which I, you know, considered in those other proceedings, then it's still not clear to me the project would be clearly needed. You know, and that depends on other factors, but, you know, about whether or not additional firm gas transportation is needed on the system. But even if it was, you know, I'd say that it may not require a project anywhere close to the magnitude or, you know, timeline that's being proposed here.
You haven't analyzed, though, how the project could be scaled down if the OCCT and Paris Rice facilities are approved as proposed, have you?
Asked and answered.
Yeah, we've been through this. Sustained.
Well, it's my last question, and I don't think we have gotten a clear answer to that yet. The
Well,
question is
if you
whether
didn't
he's
get a clear
analyzed.
answer before, I don't know why we moved on. I mean, that we definitely covered this topic, so
That's fine. I have the ability to circle back to topics that I've covered before and ask a different question about them.
I don't think that's a different question. We've already asked him if he analyzed that or not. I'm sure of that.
Okay.
Okay.
No further questions.
All right. Any other cross for the witness?
Krista Westerberg, yes, for Walnut Way, I have a follow-up to the cross we just heard.
Okay, go ahead.
Mr. Burgess, you were asked some questions by Mr. Wilson about Stasek Exhibit 17, which perhaps we could call up.
Second.
Was this the letter?
Yes.
From Microsoft? Yeah.
That's the one. And I think you were in the process of providing an answer, and Mr. Wilson moved on to a different question, and you didn't get to finish your answer. So if you recall what you were going to say, I would like for you to finish your answer.
Right.
Objection form.
Okay, can you rephrase that?
Was there anything else, Mr. Burgess, you were attempting to say as to this letter under cross from Mr. Wilson that you did not have an opportunity to say because you were cut off?
Objection form.
Overruled.
I think what I was saying was that the load ramp, so they referred here to the September 2024 load ramp provided by Microsoft. And what I was attempting to say is that, to my knowledge, the company's not performed any analysis on that September 2024 load ramp. The initial applications in the Paris Rice and Oak Creek CT proceedings had a different load forecast from sort of the April 2024 timeframe.
Your Honor, this is in his testimony.
Okay, let him answer.
If we're trying to be efficient here, let's do it even-handedly.
I'm not going to cut him off in the middle. Just answer the question, please.
Right. So anyway, I was just trying to point out that, he's asking me about whether or not, this load for, I have any reason to disagree with this load forecast, and I didn't, but what I was pointing out is that this hasn't actually been analyzed by the company, this updated, September 2024 load forecast.
Okay, thank you. That's all.
So any redirect, any other cross? Any redirect from Cub?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, thanks very much. You're excused.
Thank you.
And we can take witness Singletary.
Cub will call Dr. Keim to the stand.
Oh, okay, sure. All right, let me swear you in. I hear you there. Do you swear or affirm, tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. Your Honor, can you see me? I'm having some camera problems.
Your eyes are cut off. You're cut off like it's
okay. Is that better? Okay, yeah. I can't see myself on the screen at all. So as long as you can see me and hear me, I think we're okay.
Yeah, you're good to go. All right.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead.
Okay. Good morning, Dr. Keim. Can you please state and spell your name for the record?
Yes, Steve Keim, K-I-H-M.
And did you prepare and cause to be filed direct testimony in this proceeding?
I did.
And if asked the same question set forth in your testimony today under oath, would your answers be the same?
They would.
And is the information in your testimony true and correct to the best of your knowledge?
Yes.
The witness is available for cross.
Okay, I didn't have him on the list for cross. Was there any questions?
None from applicant, Your Honor.
Okay. All right, thanks. You're excused.
Thank you, Your Honor.
And Your Honor, I don't know if we need to go off the record for this, but just a quick question, I guess, clarification on the record evidence from Cub consistent with your comments. I just recalled that in the previous proceedings as it related to your direction to refile, in this case, exhibit Cub Singletary 1 with an executed version of that document. I just wanted to make certain that we were on the same page with the applicant that data request response, that underlying data request response would be updated so that we could file that consistent with your direction.
Okay, so you're asking the applicant to provide that contract.
I just wanted to make certain that the company had the same understanding that they would do that they would provide that updated document consistent with the last two proceedings.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Your Honor. I missed which document Mr. Singletary is talking about.
Sure.
The EPC contract? Is that
Correct. It's the EPC contract that was provided in response to a discovery in this proceeding. It was offered as a Cub exhibit, but the version is not the final executed version, and the ALJ has asked us to provide the executed version, and so if the company could provide that.
Understood and no objection.
All right.
All right. And so Dr. Keim and I will do our thing here.
So I didn't sworn you in yet, so we're calling witness Singletary. Raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right, go ahead.
Good morning, Mr. Singletary. Please state and spell your name for the record.
Corey Singletary, COREY,
And did you file in this case direct, supplemental direct, and sir rebuttal testimony?
I did.
And if I asked the question set forth therein, would your answers today be the same?
They would.
And everything is true and correct to the best of your knowledge?
Yes.
Mr. Singletary is available for cross-examination.
I think the applicant had questions.
Yes, that's right. Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, Mr. Singletary. My name is Lauren Rosso. I'm one of the attorneys who represents Wisconsin Electric.
Good morning.
Mr. Singletary, your testimony addresses the possibility that project costs could be higher than forecast, right?
Yes.
You make several recommendations to the commission to try to prevent customers from bearing any of those costs that could exceed forecast, right?
I would disagree with your characterization a little bit. It would be not that customers shouldn't bear any costs. It's that my recommendations were aimed at making recommendations for the commission to sort of set forth parameters that would better balance the risk of future cost overruns between the customer and the utility and its shareholders.
Mr. Singletary, would you concede that there are a number of factors outside of Wisconsin Electric's direct control or influence that could cause cost overruns?
Yes.
And despite this recognition, you believe that there should be a presumption of imprudence for the overage amount and that the entire burden of proof to justify those costs lies with the utility, correct?
Correct.
And so if I understood your testimony from a moment ago, with respect to those cost overruns, you're not saying that customers should be prevented from all of them, but rather that there should be a burden of imprudence for the company to overcome, correct?
Yes.
Under that standard of the presumption of imprudence that you propose, what evidence would Wisconsin Electric have to present to overcome that burden?
I don't know if I could answer that here today. That would be very fact specific to the nature of the cost overruns and would hinge somewhat on what the utility is asserting were the costs of those cost overruns.
But you stand by that recommendation that there should be a presumption of imprudence?
As a general regulatory policy, yes.
And that if the company does not overcome your preferred standard, shareholders would bear the cost overruns, correct?
To be clear, they would have to overcome or they would have to satisfy the commission's requirements for that burden of proof.
But your recommendation is that the commission adopt your burden of proof, right?
No, my recommendation is the commission adopt the policy that the utility has the burden of proof and that there is a presumption of imprudence until the utility overcomes that.
And if the utility does not overcome it, shareholders would bear those cost increases, right?
Likely, yes.
And you think that's a fair outcome because, as you state in direct testimony, shareholders are compensated for the risks associated with operating and owning a utility?
In part, yes.
Mr. Singletary, another recommendation you make to the commission is for the commission to define what circumstances will and will not constitute a force majeure event, correct?
Correct.
And you propose various events that you believe should not be considered force majeure, correct?
Correct.
So I'm going to refer to those as your non-force majeure events. Mr.
Okay.
Singletary, you are not a lawyer, are you?
I am not.
And you do not have experience negotiating engineering, procurement, and construction, or EPC, contract terms, do you?
I do not.
And you don't claim to know what standard terms in an EPC contract are, do you?
Across the entire industry, no. I only have the experience I have in reviewing EPC agreements in past proceedings, not, I mean, the ones in the proceedings we've been talking about, as well as some other historic proceedings.
You don't know whether an EPC contractor would agree to bear the cost of your non-force majeure events, do you?
I do not.
And even if that contractor did, you don't know how that could shift or change the ultimate contract price in an EPC contract, right?
I do not.
Mr. Singletary, your testimony also discusses IRPs. Is that right?
I believe so, yes. Sorry, these cases are bleeding together a little bit.
Yeah, that's fair. In this case, are you asking the commission to include an order point requiring IRPs going forward?
As the facility in this case is not a electric generation facility, I don't know if I would attach that specific recommendation here because of the sort of contingent nature of everything that was perhaps more thoroughly discussed during Mr. Burgess's cross-examination. So, you know, Cub's position and sort of testimony in this proceeding is a little more narrowly focused on the commission's actions with respect to the application for the LNG facility. So while I do still stand by my previous testimony in the other two electric generation cases that on a forward-going basis that more holistic IRP process would be appropriate, I don't know if that bears directly on the LNG facility here. Although, given again the contingent nature, it could in future cases.
Are you aware that a form of IRP legislation has been proposed in past budgets by Governor Evers?
Yes.
None of those proposals have been passed, have they?
My understanding is those proposals were removed from the legislation or the budget proposal because they were a matter of policy, which is pretty standard for Wisconsin budgetary legislative practice.
Mr. Singletary, are you familiar with the North American Electric Reliability Corporation, otherwise known as NERC?
Yes.
What is NERC to your understanding?
NERC is an independent entity tasked by FERC with, you know, I think I'll use the similar language to your colleagues in other past proceedings, but ensuring reliability of the bulk electric power system in North America.
You'd agree that NERC is a credible source on issues of grid reliability, wouldn't you?
I would agree that NERC is one such credible source, yes.
Are you familiar with the organization called Reliability First?
Reliability First is one of the 6 regional entities under NERC that handles, with respect to Wisconsin, the eastern half of Wisconsin.
You'd agree that Reliability First is also a credible source on issues of grid reliability, wouldn't you?
They are also one such credible source, yes.
And you're familiar with MISO, correct?
I am.
And MISO is also a credible source on issues of grid reliability, right?
MISO is also one such credible source, yes.
Are you aware that NERC has expressed concern that MISO is at a high risk of experiencing electricity shortfalls beginning as early as this summer?
Yes, I believe that NERC has put out a report that includes some concerns about the MISO region.
You don't have any basis to dispute NERC's concern on this point, do you?
I do not.
Mr. Singletary, are you familiar with Mr. Burgess's testimony in this case?
I am.
And you understand that Mr. Burgess testifies that if that the Oak Creek LNG project is not necessary if the commission rejects the Paris, Rice, and Oak Creek CT projects, correct?
Yes.
You understand that Mr. Burgess critiques Wisconsin Electric's modeling of the Paris, Rice, and Oak Creek CT projects in this case, right?
Yes.
Now, you don't have any evidence to suggest that in modeling the need for the Paris, Rice, and Oak Creek CT facilities, Wisconsin Electric prepared its model to disfavor solar resources, do you?
Are you asking me if ex ante the company got together in a room and conspired to not select solar as part of the model?
That wasn't exactly my question. Are you confused by my original question?
Well, so can you clarify for me with respect to, you know, the modeling and the parameters? I mean, I think Mr. Burgess's testimony is pretty clear on at least his expert opinion on the selection of solar in the
Perhaps I
modeling.
can short circuit this for you. Do
Sure.
you recall testifying in cross-examination in the Oak Creek CT hearing?
I do.
And when you were asked a very similar question in that case, whether Plexos was biased against solar resources, you answered, quote, "I have no evidence to suggest that the company decided ex ante in preparing these model runs to prepare the model in such a way as to not select solar," end quote. Is that testimony, is that accurate?
Subject to check, that sounds correct.
And that was under oath, wasn't it?
Yes.
You don't have any reason to disagree with that testimony now, do you?
No.
Is it Cub's position that the commission should deny the Oak Creek LNG project?
Cub's position on the Oak Creek LNG facility is tied to the commission's decision on the electric generation facilities that we've been talking about, the Rice facility and the CT facility, and is somewhat nuanced because depending on what the commission may or may not do in those proceedings, along the same lines of what Mr. Burgess described a few minutes ago, the commission would have perhaps some different alternatives that we would propose. I think the point is that even if if those facilities are denied in whole, then the need for the Oak Creek LNG facility doesn't seem to stand up. And so under that circumstance, Cub's recommendation and position would be that the commission deny the Oak Creek LNG facility in whole. Mr. Burgess also discussed a scenario where if the electric generation facilities were scaled back, that the commission could find that either the facilities are no longer needed because of the firm gas need of whatever they approve doesn't require the LNG facilities, or perhaps a smaller scaled down LNG facility could be approved. So this application could be approved in part under that scenario. So I can't give you one answer as to what Cub's position is because it's very contingent upon what the commission does in the other proceeding.
Okay, and so understanding that your answer or Cub's position in this case is contingent on the Oak Creek and Paris Rice outcomes, it is true though that Cub opposes both the Paris Rice and Oak Creek CT facilities as proposed, correct?
As proposed, yes.
Are you familiar with the High Noon Solar Invest project?
Not in detail as I sit here today.
Are you aware that that project is a joint application by Wisconsin Electric, Wisconsin Public Service Corporation, and MG&E?
That sounds correct, yes.
And that it involves both a solar and BESS, solar and BESS facilities?
That is my recollection, I believe, yes.
Did CUB oppose Wisconsin Electric's acquisition of the High Noon Solar and Battery Project?
No, we did not.
Did CUB participate in that docket?
We did not.
Are you aware that the High Noon project will cost nearly $1 billion?
Yes.
CUB's mission involves advocating for reliable, affordable, and sound utility service, correct?
I would agree that that's consistent with what our work is.
CUB's advocacy is on behalf of residential and small business utility customers, right?
Correct.
Is advocating for renewable energy sources part of CUB's mission?
CUB is technology agnostic on electric generation sources. We're not a renewable advocate, nor are we a renewable opponent.
So your answer may be the same here, but is opposing natural gas resources part of CUB's mission?
In the same way that we're technology agnostic with respect to renewables, the same applies to natural gas.
Okay, so can you explain why CUB has opposed the Paris, Rice, Oak Creek CT, and at least partially opposed the Oak Creek LNG projects, but not the nearly $1 billion High Noon project?
Some of it is a matter of resources and timing, and when we have the ability to participate in proceedings and the degree to which we can participate in the number of proceedings that come before the commission. And in the case of the High Noon case, we did not participate in that proceeding I don't remember exactly what the case is, but you know, there were circumstances that made it we did not participate in that case. The other reason that we participated in this proceeding and perhaps not some others is directly related to a lot of what we've been talking about here. The need for this LNG case, as well as the associated two electric generation cases, is largely driven by a very unusual circumstance, which is the addition of, you know, large single point load to WEPCO's system. And because of the circumstances of this case, we were more heavily involved with this case. So it is not that we chose to not oppose a solar project, and we chose but instead chose to oppose an LNG facility. But we believe that these applications were most directly tied to a unique regulatory decision point and set of considerations that we felt, you know, necessitated our involvement.
Are you aware of why Wisconsin Electric needs the High Noon project?
Object to foundation.
Your Honor, he has testified to some familiarity with the High Noon project. He can answer. He doesn't know if that's the case.
Should I answer, Your Honor?
Yeah, I'm just wondering what the relevance of that is at this point.
It directly relates to his last answer on single point resources.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead and answer.
Can I have the question read back, please?
Yeah, let's read it back.
Sorry, I'm going back because I'm not sure where this question started. I have dashes in there.
Before is it Attorney Westerberg objected? Yeah.
Question, are you aware of why Wisconsin Electric needs the High Noon project?
I don't recall the specifics of the analysis and evidence presented in that case.
Does CUB receive funding from any renewable energy companies?
No.
That's all I have. Thank you, Mr. Singletary.
All right, across from other parties? No redirect?
No redirect, Your Honor.
All right, thanks very much. You're excused.
Thank you.
All right, so let me just get off the record for a second. How are you doing, Debbie?
I'm okay.
You're okay. All right, well, let's keep going then. We'll have Sierra Club next. Okay.
Sierra Club would like to call Mr. Eric Borden.
Okay, see you there. Let's swear you in. Raise your right hand. You swear or affirm, tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes, I do.
All right, and just maybe your mic's a little low. You may be speaking quite a bit. So,
Is that better?
yeah, I think so.
I think
All
I
right,
was
great.
just
That's good.
speaking
Thanks.
softly.
Can I just ask if it's Eric with a C or with a K?
With a C.
Thank you.
All right, go ahead.
Good afternoon. Can you please state and spell your name for the record?
Sure, it's Eric Borden, ERICBORDEN.
And are you the same Eric Borden who prepared direct testimony, surrebuttal testimony, along with 11 associated exhibits that were filed in this proceeding?
Yes.
To the best of your knowledge, was your pre-filed testimony true and correct?
Yes.
Upon review of your prior testimony, do you have any corrections that you would like to make?
No.
If you were asked the same questions today that you were asked during pre-filed testimony, would your answers be the same?
Yes.
Thank you, Your Honor. The witness is available for cross.
All right, the applicant has questions.
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Borden. My name is Patrick Proctor Brown. I represent the applicant, Wisconsin Electric Power Company, and its subsidiary, Wisconsin Electric Gas Operations. We met before? I don't think so.
I don't think so.
Good to meet you this morning. You're aware of a distinction that's been made in this case between Wisconsin Electric, the electric utility, and Wisconsin Electric Gas Operations, the natural gas utility, right?
Yes.
So if I refer to Wisconsin Electric as Wisconsin Electric, you'll understand that's the electric utility?
Yes.
And if I refer to Wisconsin Electric Gas Operations as WEPCO, you'll understand that's the natural gas utility?
Yes.
Great. I want to start off with some questions about reliability. Is that okay?
Sure.
Did you read Jody Arndt's rebuttal testimony in this case?
Can you say the name again?
Jody Arndt, A-R-E-N-D-T.
I do not believe so.
Okay, did you read all of the testimony in this case or only particular pieces of testimony?
Particular pieces.
Okay, Your Honor, if you could bring up Mr. Arndt's rebuttal testimony, I'd appreciate it.
Okay, I can get the public version here.
And Mr. Borden, I believe subject to check, you did respond to some of Mr. Arndt's rebuttal testimony in your surrebuttal testimony. Do you recall that?
I do not.
Okay, we can check, but that piece is not important to me. I just want to focus in on a couple of pages of Mr. Arndt's rebuttal testimony, if that's okay.
Sure.
So if we could go to page 13, Your Honor. Mr. Borden, have you seen this piece of testimony before?
No.
Okay, and Your Honor, I think we can allow him to read pages 13 to 17 if he'd like, or I just have some questions related to this testimony too, Mr. Borden.
So was it the similar questions that were asked in the 316 and 317 case?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, so I think they're essentially general questions about the entities being cited here. So why don't we pursue the questions and see if the witness may need more background, but I think the questions that I'm expecting shouldn't really take a whole lot of review of the testimony. So let's proceed with the questions first.
Thank you, Your Honor. So, Mr. Borden, right here at the top of page 13, Mr. Arndt is discussing reliability concerns expressed by the North American Electric Reliability Corporation, or NERC, Reliability First, and MISO. You see that in the question?
Yes.
And what is NERC to your understanding?
My understanding is they have oversight and responsibility for bulk power reliability.
So NERC is a not-for-profit international regulatory authority whose mission is to assure the effective and efficient reduction of risks to the reliability and security of the grid. Do you agree with that?
Yes.
Would you agree NERC is a credible source on the issue of grid reliability?
Yes.
What is reliability first to your understanding?
I'm not familiar with them.
I told you they're the regional organization for the reliability and security of the electric grid under delegated authority from NERC in eastern Wisconsin. Would you have any basis to dispute that?
No, but I'm not familiar with them.
So do you have any basis to criticize reliability first as being not credible on issues of grid reliability?
Again, I'm not familiar with them.
Okay, so you just don't have any position on whether they're a credible source at all. Is that right?
Correct.
Thank you. Do you consider MISO to be a credible source on issues of grid reliability?
Yes.
And so per Judge Newmark's comments earlier, without going through these 5 pages in detail, do you have any basis to dispute Mr. Arndt's description of NERC's and Reliability First's concerns about reliability in MISO?
I mean, this is just not what I've addressed in my testimony in this case. I haven't addressed electric reliability at all. So I'm not able to give an expert opinion on these issues here because I haven't even looked at them.
Yeah, and that's my point. Do you have any basis to dispute what Mr. Arndt is saying about reliability in this case?
I haven't looked at it.
Great, thank you. And Your Honor, could you go to page 16, please? And there in bold, Mr. Arndt is quoting a NERC document that says natural gas-fired generators are a vital grid resource. Do you have any basis to dispute NERC's views on the importance of natural gas generators for reliability?
No, I think is a very general statement. That's I have no reason to dispute that.
Okay, thank you. Your Honor, could you bring up Exhibit SC Borden 1, please?
Way down on the list. Hang on.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Borden, this is your resume, correct?
Yes.
It states you have been with Synapse from May 2022 to the present, correct?
Yes.
And it lists 3 topics related to your work with Synapse, 3 bullets, right?
Correct.
The first bullet says sponsors expert testimony and performs analyses related to utility electric vehicle incentives and policy, wildfire mitigation strategies and costs, risk modeling, rate design, cost allocation, and revenue requirement issues in general rate cases and multi-year rate plans, right?
Yes.
This bullet specifically states you sponsor testimony related to cost allocation in general rate case and multi-year rate plans, correct?
Yes.
Does not say anything about construction dockets like this one, right?
Correct.
And your only experience testifying in Wisconsin was in Wisconsin Power and Light's test year 2024 rate case, correct?
Yes.
Fair to say the majority of your testimony has been in California, correct?
That's fair, although it's rapidly expanding with Synapse.
Understood. And most of that testimony was on behalf of TURN, the utility reform network where you worked, correct?
Correct.
I'm going to switch gears to cost allocation. Do you have that topic in mind?
Sure.
You're not a lawyer, correct?
Correct.
And Your Honor, if you could bring up Mr. Borden's direct testimony at 5, I'd appreciate it. If you could show the whole question beginning at line 9, Your Honor. Thanks. On the screen in front of you, Mr. Borden, you state your testimony addresses the 3rd provision of Wisconsin statute section 196.49, bolded below, correct?
Yes.
That provision reads in part, when placed in operation, add to the cost of service without proportionally increasing the value or available quantity of service, correct?
Correct.
You don't dispute that the OC LNG project will add 2 billion cubic feet of natural gas storage to Wisconsin electric system, correct?
That is what the applicant has said here, and I have no reason to think otherwise.
And you don't dispute that the OC LNG project will add 300,000 decatherms per day of vaporization and firm natural gas deliverability, correct?
Correct.
You don't dispute that the interstate natural gas pipeline system into Wisconsin is constrained, correct?
I haven't analyzed that in this testimony.
Did you review Mr. Larson's direct testimony in this case?
Yes.
Your Honor, could you bring up, and we'll go back to Mr. Borden's direct testimony after this, but if you could bring up Mr. Larson's direct testimony at 10, appreciate it. A question beginning at line 11. So, Mr. Borden, do you see the second sentence that starts as the commission recognized when it approved the Bluff Creek and Ixonia LNG facilities?
Yes.
Mr. Larson says the existing interstate natural gas pipeline system is fully subscribed for Southeast Wisconsin. See that?
Yes.
I believe your testimony was you haven't analyzed that, and the corollary would be you have no reason to dispute Mr. Larson's testimony. True?
Correct. I have not analyzed it, so I can't dispute or confirm it.
Thank you. If you could take this down, Your Honor, I'm done with Mr. Larson's testimony for now. Mr. Borden, was it your idea to focus on the 3rd provision of Wisconsin statute, section 196.493B?
It was in discussion with Sierra Club about this application, decided upon between us.
Prior to your work on this case, had you ever read that provision before?
No.
Have you read any commission decisions related to this provision?
I have looked at, I believe the Ixonia decision, which I believe basically just says that the provision is met.
So your testimony is the single decision you've looked at in relation to this provision is the commission's decision approving the Ixonia LNG facility for Wisconsin Gas. Is that right?
That's the one that I've looked at, yes.
And just so the record's clear, that decision was a joint application from Wisconsin Gas and Wisconsin Electric Power Company, WEPCO, to approve both the Ixonia LNG facility and the Bluff Creek LNG facility, right?
Yes.
And that's the sole commission decision that you've read in preparation for your testimony in this case, correct?
Yes.
Have you read any court cases related to this provision?
No.
And Your Honor, if you on page 6, a little bit further down. That's perfect. Thank you. On this page of your testimony, Mr. Borden, you state, my testimony distinguishes between firm WEPCO gas ratepayers, which I refer to as ratepayers, and Wisconsin Electric Power Company, defined as Wisconsin Electric, which is a distinct WEPCO customer. Did I read that right?
Yep.
Was it your idea to distinguish between Wisconsin Electric and other firm WEPCO gas customers?
This came out of analyzing the proportionality requirement. So, I mean, yeah, it came out of thinking about how to meet this requirement in this application.
Does the statutory provision itself distinguish between classes of ratepayers?
The statutory provision looks at the benefits and costs to ratepayers.
Ratepayers generally, right?
Generally, yes. And asks whether those would be proportional, those benefits and costs. And that's the question that I've analyzed in testimony.
This provision could just apply to WEPCO's overall cost of service and total value and quantity of service, correct?
I'm not sure exactly what you mean by that.
Your Honor, if you could just scroll up a little bit so that he has the full provision on the screen.
Well, I'm just curious, are you asking him to interpret that statutory language?
He based his testimony on the statute, and I just want to see if
But he did explain his understanding of those words in his testimony. It's pretty clear what he's doing in there. So is there a confusion about the statements he made in testimony?
No, I can move on. Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay.
Mr. Borden, is WEPCO allowed to discriminate among firm natural gas customers?
Objection calls for speculation.
I'm going to sustain that as calling for a legal conclusion, but yeah, sustain.
I'm going to ask the question. We'll see if it gets the same objection. Can WEPCO decide, for example, to restrict natural gas supplies from some firm customers while providing firm gas to other customers?
Same objection.
You're objecting this as speculation?
I am.
Okay, I'm gonna overrule that objection. And you can continue to ask your question. Let's have him answer that.
Need it read back, Mr. Borden?
Sure. I guess I'm wondering if, to the extent it's a legal question, that's not something I'm willing to testify to. I'm not aware.
It wouldn't be appropriate, but if you can answer it in any other capacity, then go ahead. If you can't answer that, let us know. Do you want it read back?
Sure.
Okay, I have to read the question back. So it would be before The attorney decides objection.
I'm sorry. This is trying to ask me if I want to stop.
Oh, it's after that. For sure.
Oh, come on. Can we go decide, for example, to restrict natural gas? I don't know what the word is there. It's not complies.
Supplies.
Supplies from
was
some
going
firm
for.
customers. I'm sorry. Can we go decide, for example, to restrict natural gas supplies from some firm customers while providing firm gas to other customers?
Hearing that read back, I'll object that it does drop for a legal conclusion.
Any response?
It's not specific to the statute, but I think if you can answer outside of providing a legal conclusion, as you said, Your Honor, it would be appropriate for him to.
Okay, yeah, let's have him answer outside of a legal conclusion. Anything you know about that?
I don't know, and I somewhat fear that this is a rule either in regulation or in statute, and so I, so yeah, I'm not sure.
You have over a decade of experience in rate case proceedings and other regulatory proceedings before public utility commissions, right?
Yes.
Are you aware of an anti-discrimination principle generally enshrined in those proceedings?
Generally, although
Object to relevance, these are other states, and we're still getting into legal principles, so those would
Your
be
Honor,
my objections.
I don't, so he has an attorney. I don't understand why other people are making objections, but it's relevant to his entire cost allocation testimony.
Yeah, we're gonna proceed. Go ahead with your question. Yeah.
Do you need it read back, Mr. Borden, or did you understand it?
say it one more time.
Let's read it back.
Question, are you aware of an anti-discrimination principle generally enshrined in those proceedings?
I'm not totally sure. I get your point that firm customers are firm customers, and they have contracts signed with the utility. I do think there tends to be emphasis on the residential class, particularly the severe impacts that the residential class can face from outages. So that's what I can say on it.
Okay, and one more kind of foundational question. Are you aware of a principle called the filed rate doctrine?
No.
Are you aware that utilities have filed tariffs and that any customer can take service under those filed tariffs by signing up for service under those tariffs?
If they're consistent with the tariffs, then yes.
And so your discussion of your understanding of the anti-discrimination principle would be consistent with the ability of qualified customers to take service under a filed tariff, right?
I agree that customers that require service from a utility can interconnect and sign up for the appropriate tariff.
And the utility would be required to provide service under the terms of that tariff, right?
Yes.
Your Honor, that's all I have.
Okay. All right. Any other cross for this witness? Okay, redirect.
No redirect. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Borden. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And your excuse. Thanks very much. So we do have a few more witnesses. Are we calling all? So let me just slow down here. So we have Sierra Club. So next is commission staff, right? So are we hearing from all commission staff witnesses to check?
Yes, Your Honor.
I'm sorry, I talked over you.
Yes, Your Honor. Everyone is here.
Everyone's here. Okay. So why don't we just break for 15 minutes? We'll take our staff witnesses after that. So 12:15, we'll get back. Any problems with that?
May I suggest maybe a 30-minute break so we can grab lunch?
Oh, sure.
The timing.
Go ahead. 30 minutes. I'll give it to
Thank
you.
you so much.
All right.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right, it's 12:30. So we need commission staff next. Well, here, see you there.
So Judge, I think Sophia is still a few minutes behind.
Aha. Okay, boy, where did she go to get her lunch?
Great question.
She should know to bring a lunch on days like these. While we're off the record and we're waiting here, I did have a question, mostly for the applicant. I'm not sure if the record shows us which tariff the WEPCO would be taking service if if everything's approved. And if it knows that, I'm curious if it would be willing to file that as an exhibit, just the tariff sheet in terms of the under which the WEPCO would be the customer for the OCC tea and Paris rice facility.
It is.
Gas customers.
So yeah, Your Honor, I think we would be willing to do that. Potentially, it's the power generation tariff on the gas side. So there are service agreements already signed by some of the other power generators under that tariff. I think it would be in a STASIC exhibit if you wanted to pre-market as 23. I think is no 24.
24, yeah. Well, no, I think we have a 24, a 23, yeah, 24, yes. Yes, moving target. Yeah, so I think that would be useful. So just the sheet that it's going to be taking service from. I know that currently does it already, but there's certain classes. So if we could just indicate, well, we do that. I don't know. We just file the document. Well, just getting the sheet in at least would be useful, I think.
So you're anticipating putting in the actual tariff sheet?
Well, that would be the least controversial way to do it, I guess. It's already a document. We can, know what it is, but unless we can just have a witness just take the stand quickly and just state on the record where those facilities will take service. Is anyone left?
I think we would prefer to do it as a delayed exhibit, Your Honor, and then it would just be a prefatory page and then the tariff sheet after it. That works.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine. We'll have to. I mean, once it gets filed, people can argue about it, but I don't think there'd be much controversy there. So okay, we'll mark it STASIC 24 and then try to describe that when we get on the record.
Sounds good. Thank you, Your Honor.
All right. So we have everyone we're expecting. So let's get on the. Oh, good. Really good. All right, let's get on the record. So we're back from break, and we did have a new issue that I raised for the applicant, simply to get some kind of documentation on the record as to which tariff the WEPCO would be taking service from WEGO if the facilities that WEPCO is proposing are approved and are constructed. And I believe we're going to mark that document Exhibit WEPCO STASIC 24. And just correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it'll be a brief cover page, an explanation text, and then the tariff sheet after that. So is that your understanding? Is that the applicant can provide that for us?
Yes, Your Honor, that's my understanding.
Okay, and then any objections to that? I think we know we're expecting. If there are surprises, you can object to the receipt of that document once it's filed. Typically, it's a 3-day window to file an objection, but obviously not expecting any controversy on that. But it would be useful to have just be able to put a pin in where the service will be coming from. So, all right, thanks for that. And let's move on to commission staff witnesses.
Yes, Your Honor, and we'd like to start with the DNR witnesses. We'll start with Jury Rademacher.
Right.
Commission staff calls Jury Rademacher to the stand.
Okay, I see you're there. You're good. Do you swear or affirm, tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right, go ahead.
Did you prepare and file or cause to be filed the direct testimony labeled direct DNR Rademacher in this
Yes,
case?
I did. Yes, I did.
And are the statements and representations in your testimony true and correct?
Yes, they are.
Do you have any additions or modifications to your testimony at this time?
I do not.
Open for cross.
Okay, we do have a Walnut Way, I think. No, sorry. Confusing that. Okay, don't have any cross indicated here. Any cross for this witness? No. All right, you're excused.
Okay, thank you.
Commission staff will call Stacy Rowe to the stand.
See you there. Raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm? Tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth.
I do.
All right, go ahead.
Did you prepare and file or cause to be filed the direct testimony labeled direct DNR Rowe in this docket?
Yes, I did.
Are the statements and representations in your testimony true and correct?
Yes, they are.
Do you have any additions or modifications to add?
I do not.
Open to cross.
All right, any questions? No? You're excused. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, commission staff calls Jordan Munson to the stand. And actually, I apologize. We wanted to start with Jury because she had a time constraint. I'm not sure if it makes more sense to start with Tyler. Let's go ahead with Jordan Munson. I know both he and Tyler have been indicated for cross, and I don't think the order will matter too much.
Okay, that's fine. So I'll swear you in. Raise your right hand. You swear or affirm, tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth.
I do.
All right, go ahead.
Did you prepare and file or cause to be filed the direct testimony in this case?
I did.
Are the statements and representations in your testimony true and correct?
They are.
Do you have any additions or modifications?
I do. One thing to note. At the time of the testimony, we had not prepared our preliminary determination, but we since have, and that has been out for public comment. And it is currently out for public comment.
Thanks. And to clarify, when you say we, do you mean DNR?
I mean the air program at the DNR when I say we.
Thank you. Open to cross.
Okay, looks like Walnut Way. Go ahead.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Munson. My name is Krista Westerberg. I'm an attorney for Walnut Way Conservation Corp in this proceeding. I have just a few questions for you. As you indicated in your pre-filed testimony, you're reviewing the air permit for the LNG facility being proposed in this docket on behalf of the DNR. Is that correct?
Yes.
And that air permit is also going to cover the methane gas plant that has been proposed at Oak Creek as well. Is that correct?
Yes.
Your Honor, methane
And-
gas plant.
If we,
The witness answered, I can, together you refer to these facilities in your testimony as the Oak Creek Natural Gas Fire Generation Project. Is that right?
Yes.
You have participated in the environmental review for both facilities for purposes of WEPA, the Wisconsin Environmental Policy Act. Is that right?
Saying both facilities is challenging for the air program in the sense for us it's the same facility. So I don't know if you want to clarify that or not.
Well, let me try it this way. You've participated in the environmental review for both facilities in the separate dockets created by the PSC for the LNG facility and the gas plant. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And those two facilities are being handled in different environmental review documents for purposes of WEPA. Is that right?
I believe so. I'm not a WEPA expert.
But to the extent that you know, they're being handled in different environmental assessments. Is that right?
Yes.
And you've contributed to each of those environmental assessments. Is that right?
That's correct.
Your training, as I read your testimony, is as an engineer.
That's correct.
You're not an epidemiologist,
I am not an epidemiologist.
and you're not trained in public health, correct?
I am not trained in public health.
Have you reviewed the impacts to human health of the air emissions attributable to the combined LNG facility and gas plant as part of your reviews of the air permit?
We, meaning the air program, performed a dispersion modeling analysis on air quality impacts, but I did not specifically look at health impacts.
Are you planning to do so?
No.
That's all I have. Thank you.
okay. Other cross?
Yes, Your Honor. I just have a couple cleanup questions.
Okay, yeah, just introduce yourself.
Thank you. Mr. Munson, my name is Attorney Patrick Proctor Brown, and I represent the applicant, Wisconsin Electric Power Company. I believe we've been on a couple of these proceedings before, but it's nice to meet you again this afternoon.
Nice to meet you.
I haven't asked you any questions before, but I just want to clean up a couple of things that you were asked by one of the Ways Council. She referred to a facility as a methane gas plant. Do you recall that question?
I do recall, yeah.
And you answered the question, but that's not an endorsement by DNR of the term methane gas plant, is it?
That is correct.
You don't refer to any of the facilities subject to the air permit as a methane gas plant, correct?
That's correct.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay. Any other cross? Redirect?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. Thanks very much. You're excused.
We'll move on to our staff witnesses. Sticking with environmental, let's call Tyler Tomaszewski to the stand.
Hello. Hey there. Can we get your screen going? Huh, should be on.
It might just be delayed.
Oh, okay, there we go. Excellent. All right, raise your right hand. We'll swear you in. Do you swear or affirm, tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right, go ahead.
Did you prepare and file or cause to be filed the direct testimony, direct PSC Tomaszewski, and also the exhibit EX PSC EA in this docket?
I did.
And are the statements and representations in the testimony and exhibits you filed in this case true and correct?
Yes.
Do you have any additions or modifications to your testimony or exhibit at this time?
Yes, I'm not sure if it's a big deal, but at the time my testimony was filed, I was an environmental analysis and review specialist with the commission, and I'm now a program and policy supervisor in the same division.
Thank you, and congratulations. Open to cross.
Okay, Walnut Way, questions?
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Tomaszewski. I'm Krista Westerberg on behalf of Walnut Way. You were the commission staff lead in preparing an environmental assessment for the LNG facility proposed in this docket. Is that right?
That's correct.
And that environmental assessment did not recommend preparing an EIS, correct?
That is correct.
The EA made a finding of no significant environmental impact. Is that right?
I think that's in the EA, the specific wording. Can we maybe pull the environmental assessment up? I mean,
that was the only question I had based on that. The essential point is you made a finding of no significant environmental impact, a FONSI, right?
Sorry, what was the last thing you said?
A FONSI, F-O-N-S-I,
Oh.
the acronym.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. You were also the commission staff lead in preparing an environmental assessment for the proposed new gas plant in docket 6630 CE 317, correct?
That is correct.
And that environmental assessment also did not recommend preparing an EIS, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And that environmental assessment also made a finding of no significant impact, correct?
Correct.
The LNG facility proposed in this docket then is subject to a separate WEPA process than the gas plant. Is that right?
Objection to form, Tyler's not the WEPA coordinator on either case. He's the environmental review analyst. So I think he's addressed the fact that there are two different EAs in each docket requiring preparation. But I'm not, I would object to the extent that he needs to speak to the WEPA requirements that somebody else has.
Well, can we see if he can answer it? Because he did author both EAs.
Yeah, I think it's a fair question.
Could you have the question repeated, please?
Let's read it back, please. Yeah.
Okay, cursor, let's go. Question, the LNG facility proposed in this docket is subject to a separate WEPA project than the gas plant. Is that right?
I think it was WEPA process, but yes. Question.
Well, it's the same WEPA process. It's just two different dockets. So they were both reviewed in their own dockets.
Yes, that's what I meant. Thank you. And it's your understanding the LNG facility would receive gas from a proposed natural gas lateral called the Rochester Lateral Pipeline. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. And that natural gas pipeline project is also under review by the commission, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And I think the EA says it's being considered in a docket 6630 CG 139. Does that sound right?
Yes.
And that's because the applicants there are seeking a certificate of authority for the pipeline. Is that right?
Correct.
And that pipeline project will also have a separate environmental review performed under WEPA, separate from the LNG facility and gas plant, right?
Correct. I believe that is in process. I'm not assigned to that case.
Okay, thank you. Did you attend the public hearing for this docket?
I did. The joint public hearing with the LNG and the CT plants.
Okay, and that was last week, right?
Correct.
Okay, so the public hearing for the LNG facility was combined with the public hearing for the new gas plant for purposes of getting public testimony, right?
Correct.
Have you assessed whether the gas plant, the LNG facility, and the gas lateral together would significantly affect the quality of the human environment?
That's a good question. Significant is a touchy word as far as how our reviews go. I am aware that when we prepare an environmental assessment, we are looking to see if the impacts are significant enough to warrant an environmental impact statement. I do discuss how these projects are related, but I don't think I definitively concluded whether or not all of these impacts put together would create a significant impact to, I believe you said the environment or human health or human environment.
The quality of the human environment.
Quality of the human environment. I don't believe the EA makes a specific determination on that. Or
Do you know
conclusion.
do you know if the commission is planning to make that determination in the future?
I do not know.
Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay. Other cross? No? Any redirect?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay.
Judge, would you mind pulling up the EA and going to the cumulative impacts section? I think it might be 5.1, but I don't have it in front of me myself.
I guess I'd object to that exceeding the scope of cross because I didn't ask about the cumulative impacts.
I may have misunderstood, but I thought the last questions were exactly about the cumulative impacts of this and other projects.
That's not how I would characterize it, but we can wait for the question.
Right. Well,
Okay, well, I'll start with a background question. Mr. Tomaszewski, did my colleague Attorney Westerberg ask about in answering one of the questions that you received on cross, I heard you describe some language in the environmental assessment that acknowledged that there were multiple projects involved at Oak Creek. Isn't that right? Or did I hear you correctly? Do you remember that?
Yes.
Sorry. Thanks. Do you remember the name of the section that you're thinking of?
Yeah, I believe it's just a little further down. It's cumulative effects. It's part of Administrative Code PSC 4. It's kind of our roundup. Yeah, 5.8.
Can you explain your understanding of this item that you say is required by PSC 4? What are cumulative effects of a proposed project in general?
Cumulative effects. Sorry. I mean, it says it right there at the top, cumulative effect of a proposed action when combined with other actions and the cumulative effect of repeated actions of the type proposed. So these are multiple projects associated with other actions combined with these other actions. So I saw them as a cumulative effect with this project, the LNG plant, storage plant, along with the pipeline, along with the combustion turbine facilities. So I thought it appropriate to discuss their relationship in this section as a cumulative effect.
And the WEPA coordinator, who's not you, but Adam Ingwell, our colleague Adam Ingwell, he's required to consider the cumulative impacts in signing this environmental assessment finding of no significant impacts.
Correct.
Okay. And so is it fair to say that this EA and the other EA in the Oak Creek combustion turbine docket did consider each other's impacts and the associated impacts at the Oak Creek site?
Yes.
No further questions.
All right. Thanks very much. You're excused.
Commission staff calls Justin Adams to the stand.
All right. See you there. Hi. Raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm, tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right.
Did you prepare or cause to be filed the PSC Adams testimony in this docket?
I did.
And are the statements and representations in your testimony true and correct?
They are.
Do you have any additions or modifications to add?
I do not.
Open to cross.
Any questions? Hearing none, you're excused. Thanks.
Commission staff calls Rachel Gualiardo to the stand.
There you are. Raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm, tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right.
Do you need the spelling or you have the last name? There's a silent G in there.
Are you asking me? I haven't.
Yeah. Okay. Rachel, did you prepare and file or cause to be filed direct testimony along with, I'm seeing confidential and public versions of direct testimony along with confidential and public versions of 2 different exhibits in this docket?
I did.
And did you also prepare and cause to be filed the staff data request exhibit?
Yes.
In this docket? And are the statements and representations in the testimony and the exhibits that you prepared true and correct?
Yes.
Do you have any additions or modifications at this time?
No, I do not.
Open to cross.
Any questions? No? Thanks. You're excused.
Commission staff calls Andrew Lindquist to the stand.
Hi there. To unmute your mic. Gotcha there before we started. Okay. Do you swear or affirm, tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
All right. Go ahead.
All right. Did you prepare and file or cause to be filed direct PSC Lindquist, confidential and public, along with direct PSC Lindquist S for supplemental in this docket?
I did.
Did you also prepare and cause to be filed the server rebuttal PSC Lindquist testimony?
Yes, I did.
And also the 2 exhibits, or 1 exhibit with a confidential and public version, X PSC Lindquist 1?
Yes.
Are the statements and representations in the testimony and exhibits that you filed true and correct?
Yes.
Do you have any additions or modifications to add at this time?
No, I do not.
Open for cross.
Any questions? All right. Thanks. You're excused.
That's everybody.
All right. That's great. So I think we have all of our testimony. We have a few new exhibits coming in that we've identified. I think they should be marked in the transcript for your reference. And anything else we need to address before we adjourn? Not hearing anything. All right. Well, thanks very much, everyone. Appreciate everyone joining us today and producing the record. So take care, and we're adjourned.
Thank you, Your Honor. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.